Oh boy, I recorded this video once and then my camera died in the middle of it, and now as I wait for Grand Blue Versus to download, here I am talking to you about how Ezel won Worlds. So, we're gonna go over several steps in this video just like we did with Nuno Raimundo's Pale Moon and how he won. So we're gonna give a little bit of background about the player and then also go into the deck. And I think especially with the deck and also the team behind the deck, there's a lot to talk about in this video. So strap in because you're in for not a very long one, but a hopefully in-depth one. So, our world champion Simon Zheng is from Team WCC, and Simon Zheng himself is pretty well accomplished in both Vanguard and Vice, and so I don't know him personally, nearly anywhere near as well as I know Nuno, but he, in his accomplishment list that you can check on the WCC website, he has several tops for both Vanguard and Vice, and even in his winner interview he did mention that, he wants to come back to Worlds for Vice one day, and that is kind of one of his goals, and I think that's definitely very respectable, but it's kind of ironic that by winning for Vanguard Worlds, he has to go back to Vanguard Worlds next year, even if he qualifies for Vice, I think. I don't know what the rules with that are, but I'm pretty sure he's automatically already slotted in for Vanguard and there's nothing he can do, and he has to play Premium, which I mean is obviously the very fun format and very intense as our finals showed, and I think honestly nobody should be complaining about getting back into Worlds like that. But yeah, so Simon, I don't know too much about him, unfortunately, but he does have a lot of good achievements under his belt already, and I mean, having the World Championship, victory achievement is definitely not something to scoff at, so that's definitely a really, really good one. Now, I want to give some background information on Team WCC as well, because this is a team that I've kind of from the sidelines watched pick up and grow, out of last year it felt like it was just a group of friends and they were trying to start something, but this year at Worlds, throughout the entire BCS circuit, WCC really solidified themselves as this serious, competitive, professional team for Vanguard, and they are the biggest right now. They have the players with the biggest achievements, arguably. I think CDG Ronin has a lot less players, but their players are also very well achieved. Ryan Kai, for example, is the first one I can mention. But with WCC, the very unique thing about their team is that the deck list that won Worlds and actually came third in Worlds, by Derek Dow, was the same list. And that list was created by WCC as a team, and each team member that played in Premium that day used that list basically. And that's the very interesting part, in that we didn't have this so much in previous years, where you'd have a team that would just create, understand the meta, rework the meta, and just kind of create the list that everybody has to play because this will be the list that wins Worlds. And they really did it, they showed it. And it's especially over this year of 2019 BCS circuit, we saw the rise of these teams and getting tops. We had Vision in the US, we have Strictly Broken TCG also in the US, but I think they're also in Europe. Obviously we have Zistral from Yellow Card Vanguard, and so they also have WCC, which is very international. They have people in every region that's just dominating, and it's really, really exciting to see the fact that we saw this team rise up and just win Worlds and really show that WCC is the place to be. So I think in terms of the professional teams of Vanguard, this is really the number one. It's not even just me saying it from an emotional standpoint or anything. They won Worlds, so that's literally all you need to say that they are number one, and that's just insane for me. So that's WCC in a nutshell, and I think it's really goes to show the power of organized teams and how they can get together and understand the meta and create a list that is able to win Worlds. But now, speaking of the list, let's talk about it. So Ezel has been a deck in the meta for a long time. Ever since Ezel released in the V series, basically, we had Ezel in Worlds last year, which was very much Unga Bunga, use the old Krif. I got somebody in the comments saying I shouldn't pronounce it as Krif and Kirf, or Kirifu is how it's written in Japanese, so I'll just Kirifu, I guess, but Krif, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so Ezel in 2018 was very much, use Krif, use the Bowmains, go first, high roll, use Ezel when you ride up to call something and just bash face with a bunch of triggers, then go for your Gurgrid Helios, bash face, and then Ultima win, that kind of thing, or probably win on the turn 3, turn 4 play, So that was Ezel in 2018. But then a lot of things happened throughout the year. First things first, we got Raven-haired Ezel together with Brennius, and Brennius together with Wonder Ezel essentially made it so that you can kind of fix your Ultima in a way so that you would be able to essentially change your Vanguard through those skills, and then in case you only have one particular discard cost for Ultima, so that way you can kind of fix it and go for Ultima safer. So that was another big change that happened from VBTO3, so that was a really big component in my opinion of making Ezel better. And then we also saw the release of Premium Collection, which was a big point, which is, you know, the release of Spear X. And Spear X was really important, because at first Spear X was like, okay, if my opponent gives me 2 damage, I can stride on my second turn basically, if they like crit you or something and don't put the crit on the, you know, on the booster or something. So that way you're able to essentially stride all your opponents on grade 1, and it's great, you know, it's just perfect. Obviously people started to pick up on that very fast, and they were like, okay, I'm not going to give you 2 damage. So then, you know, Spear X was still amazing because you didn't have to actually discard for stride in that sense, you just had to achieve Unite, and then if you achieve the conditions, counterblast 2 and stride it. But then what happened, and this shook me when I first heard about it, was that Team WCC, and I mean just the players in general, started doing double Spear X. And double Spear X essentially meant that you would go for 1 Spear X, then countercharge, whether that was through the Maligan or through the Hoel, I think that was the countercharger that a lot of people used as well. And then if your opponent didn't give you damage, another thing we saw in BCSs was that people use self-damagers. You remember from like BT06, BT07, where clans, like throughout the limit break, the first sets of limit break, each clan got a self-damager. So you counterblast 1, take a damage, and then at the end of the turn heal it back. So what people did is use those cards, because they would be like, okay, if my opponent's not going to give me damage, I gotta give damage to myself, and then I can countercharge it with my skills, and then basically you can do your combo. You can go for the Spear X and all that stuff, and then, you know, you just win through that. And so, but then the problem was that some people were playing those cards, but then they were playing against opponents that weren't experienced in the rounds, and therefore it was like a wasted card, because you're not going to self-damage yourself if your opponent already gave you 2-3 damage, like just by swinging and not thinking about the repercussions. You know, that's a big pattern in Premium, that you have to think about the repercussions of your plays and think about the plays that your opponent wants to make when you're playing your own turn. So that's one big kind of change that happened over the BCS circuit. Another change that happened for BCS was that the original Criff got limited. You cannot use him as a starter, so what some people did was they played the new Criff as the starter, obviously, and then so they could use the grade 3 Ezel skill to superior right if they need to, but they would run the old Criff in the main deck at like 2 to 3 copies, so that you can still draw into him and use his skill with the Bowmains and ride up without losing drive checks. Now, this we saw completely omitted from the list that Derek Dow and Simon Zheng used, because they basically, like, Ezel went from having to go first to win to not caring about that at all. It can go first, it can go second, doesn't matter. It has so many plays available now. It can adapt to so many scenarios because of the insane card pool that Gold Paladin has. It's just not necessary anymore. That's the point about goals right now, and that's really interesting how it kind of turned out to be that way. So in BCSs, a lot of people did run Hoel, but then we can see also WCC cut that for the Maligan, the other CC'er, the grade 1 that Soul Blast 2 for countercharge 2. So that's kind of, you know, a less risky option in that sense, simply because I think Derek Dow explained that Hoel, also for all these other explanations, you can check out WCC's channel. Obviously, it's world-class card fighters. They have interviews with their own members and all that stuff and talking about the deck list, and you can check that out for more information if you want to. It's a great channel. They're almost at 2K subs as I record this, so go give them that final push. But the other interesting changes that happened with that Criff restriction, etc., was that, for example, we had people running Sagromor, and this was cut for Raven, because Raven gives you that little bit of extra push. And then we also saw that a lot of Bobos started to be run, so another option for self-damaging that was seen as better than the grade 1s that self-damage you and then heal up, because the self-damagers don't actually give you the check. And so a lot of these plays obviously focus on the Ultima, and the whole point of double Spear X, I didn't even mention this, is that the point of double Spear X is that when you're going into the BCS for Premium, you're going to expect to play against a lot of Ezel. And by expecting to play against a lot of Ezel, you know that both of you are aiming for Ultima. Both of you want to win, and Ultima is your win con. And so by doing double Spear X in one turn, you essentially turn up one more G unit than your opponent would, and therefore are going to the Ultima faster, and therefore are winning faster. So that's an important thing to keep in mind at all costs, is that Ultima is the target for winning games. Now, we have a few new tools that got added to the deck that did not exist throughout the BCS circuit because we didn't have Mysterious Fortune. Mysterious Fortune brought out Aggravate for Standard, but also brought out a bunch of random commons and rares that suddenly fit into Ezel and managed to win Worlds. And so there are 2 new cards from that set that went into this deck. First one of which, and when I read this effect, I literally was just like, wait, what? Because I was so shook about this effect, and I didn't read it before because I didn't manage to record the Mysterious Fortune set breakdown, and therefore I didn't look at all the comments. And so when I read it, I was like, wait, this is broken. Because Providential Angel basically makes it so that on the Ultima turn, your opponent can only PG once. And PGing is the main way you survive Ultima, because double crit to the whole board, what are you going to do about it? You know, plus the 20k to every single unit. So that is honestly the biggest addition to me, because I was like, this is just insane on Ultima turns, and I didn't know about it. And the fact that my co-caster, Kai, didn't leak any of this despite knowing about everything is just like, wow. Like, the fact that he could keep it all together. At some points I felt that something was a little off, and, you know, especially when his teammate goes up on stage, I was like, you have to know everything. And I was like, you didn't tell me anything, and I was like, I didn't know anything about this, and I had to hear about Providential Angel from like random bystanders, and I was like, what? But anyway, so that's one of the things. So that basically Providential Angel makes it so that you're 100% winning on Ultima no matter what, unless your opponent literally like quadra heals or something and then has enough rough like raw shield to actually guard the rest of the attacks. But then the other addition was Besok. So this Besok, this grade 1, essentially doesn't rest when it boosts. And so the point of that, because normally you're like, huh? I mean, it doesn't seem like it really matters. And so Besok basically is just, it's an interesting ability where it's only a 5k grade 1, but depending on how many rear guards you call that turn, it gains ability. So if you call 2 or more, it gets plus 5k, so it's a 10k. And if you call 4 or more, it doesn't rest when it boosts. So the interesting thing with that is that essentially, if you can pair that up with a certain ability, the card is going to keep on boosting forever. And that's the interesting point, in that they mentioned that from Nico Fernando they learned of the idea of the GB8. And GB8, I had to read this before recording because I've seen this card, obviously, like all of us that have played in the GB8, you know, era of G when the set came out, have. The Gold Paladin GB8 basically reads that you give 4 of, if I'm not mistaken, you give 4 of your rear guards a skill, that at the end of the battle they attack or boost, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, call one of them, put the other one at the bottom of the deck. And so it's kind of like this Platina thing. Also, speaking of Platina, I forgot to mention, Platina is an important card that was added to the deck throughout the BCS circuit, and that really added a lot to Gold Paladin, because you're able to do Platina Spear X, and then you're able to just, you know, do a bunch of combos and call out cards while syncing up your triggers and all those things. But, you know, I think a lot of people already know that, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But the GB8. So basically what you did is, you go into the GB8, give your 4 units that ability, one of those units being the Besok. And so the Besok, having gained the ability to get 5k and also not rest when it boosts, essentially every time it boosts without resting, it's gonna call out a unit from the top of your deck, from the top 2. And so the reason why WCC explained that the reason why they play this card is because in the Ezel mirror, like, you're gonna lead to deck out and you need to win somehow, and so basically that's kind of what they aim for. And so that's why I was so confused when commentating. I was like, why is he doing all those G guards and not just going to Ultima? And then realizing that he didn't have Ultima Stride Fodder. But then when you went for the GB8, I was like, what is this? I didn't know anything about this strategy. Kai sitting next to me knew all about it, and I was just like, what? So this play is just insane, because it essentially lets you have a 10k booster plus whatever gets called out, you know, in front of it over and over and over and over again. Obviously, multiple heals will stop that too, but, you know, his opponent really had to get lucky with those heals to actually survive that. So that's the Gold Paladin GB8 and how Simon Zheng managed to win the entire tournament. So Ezel, I mean, we're not going to see any Gold Paladin support for a while. How Ezel is going to keep on revolutionizing the meta, we'll see. Also, we're going to see if it gets hit on the restriction list. This very much depends on the WGP results that are happening next week. So make sure you tune in for that. That's going to be the Japanese side of Worlds. And so it's going to be interesting to see if Ezel does anything in Premium. And if it does do a lot, then we're gonna see an interesting restriction list. But I'll have my predictions for that up some other day. But that is it. That's how Simon Zheng and WCC won Worlds, basically for Premium. And so we're done for this year talking about how certain decks won Worlds. So Worlds this year was really interesting. We had a very interesting top 8. I believe it was 4 golds, the Grand Blue that came second, Luard, Katrina, as well as the final list being, I keep forgetting, I have to check. Oh, it was Dark Irregulars. There we go. So it was Dark Irregulars in that last spot. And so, yeah, that's it. So, very interesting worlds, very cool. Premium is great. If you're not playing Premium, why not go try it out right now? So, yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. And also, before we forget, we do have a new channel member. Thank you so much to Platinum Wolf 2009 for becoming a channel member. We're up to 4 members total now, so thank you so much, guys, for your support. If you want to join, the join button is next to the subscribe button. Thank you so much if you do, but once again, it's not mandatory. It's just if you feel like giving that extra bit of support. But that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.